All right. Hello, everybody. Once again, testing out alive. I wanted to talk about the Traitors Season 3, US Season 3. Although I don't have as much time as I would like to talk about the first three episodes that were dropped last night. Only have about a half an hour here to chat with y'all. One of these days, I'll sit here and shoot the shit, I guess. But tonight, we are going to talk about episodes 1, 2, and 3. It's been a hell of a week out here in LA. Emphasis on the hell. But luckily, I'm okay. But to the people out there, if there's any viewers that live in LA, I hope you all are doing all right out there. All right, let's talk about these first three episodes. I did a video last night about episode 1, so I don't want to talk about it too much because I already have. But I didn't really talk too much about the dynamics between all the traders of well, the first three. We have a fourth trader to talk about, for better or for worst. But Bob, Danielle, and Carolyn, I mentioned them being messy, and we saw that in their first night as traders together, having to off someone from the game. It was more so Carolyn and Danielle going at it, where Danielle was trying to think so many steps ahead, and Carolyn didn't think that was possible because you really can't think that far ahead. Danielle wants to be a puppet master in this game, but Carolyn is right when it comes to you have to. Well, you can't really know how some people are going to react to either what you do or what happens when somebody is actually killed in the game. So I kind of actually agreed with Carolyn in that situation. I feel like between the first three traders, Carolyn and Bob the drag queen definitely have more of a connection, and Carolyn is kind of like the odd person out of that trio. Carolyn seems to always have a different idea than them. That's not a bad thing. Towards the end of this video, I want to talk more about the traders more individually and their individual games. But let's first talk about the first kill. Since I talked about episode 1 last night, I'll talk more so about episode 2 and 3 today. Dorinda being the first one killed was disappointing because of all the four housewives. She was the only one I actually was kind of looking forward to. And we saw why in the first episode when she was not afraid to voice her opinions, especially when Ivar was coming at her. She was happy to go back at him, and he tried to put the suspicion on her, which I didn't agree with. I talked about that last night, though. I just felt like it's too obvious to say, oh, this person's acting upset, when it didn't really seem like she was acting upset. So I was confused why someone was pointing out, at least in the edit, why someone was pointing out that she was so upset, but not Danielle, who was throwing a hissy fit, acting like she was so upset, sitting away from everyone else. Maybe that was the better idea. And maybe some people are just too afraid of confrontation, someone actually coming right at you. I think Phaedra being the traitor last season really had a lot of people shook and skeptical of the housewives this season. And I guess that's why it became such an easy thing to do early in this game, to put all this focus on the housewives. I felt it was just a lot of bad gameplay from people who were continuously thinking a housewife would kill another housewife. I didn't like that from Danielle. I didn't like her actually trying to kill off a housewife and then try and make it look like another housewife did it. Now, she did put in the work to try and make that a thing, but I still thought it was a bad idea. And I think it's one of the reasons now why she's starting to look suspicious to some people, or at least one person in Jeremy. A lot of that was her overacting all the time too, with the whole crying and whatnot at different points. during the game so far, but we'll get to that a little later. First, we have to talk about the twist again. I said in episode 1 last night when I did the first review of the first episode that maybe I was being too hard on the twist. But after watching episodes 2 and 3, no, I don't think I was being too hard on the twist. Because to me, episode 1 was hella entertaining. And then episode 2 was dragged down because so much focus had to be on this twist. And is Wes and Rob and Derek going to be able to enter the game because of the mission? I don't love the missions as it is. I feel like it sometimes can be a waste of time for the episodes because, yeah, some can be funny because people are being scared and whatnot. But overall, I want to see the gameplay more than the actual or the confrontations during the roundtable more so than the missions. But of course, Rob, Wes, and Mr. Piggy did enter the game, which was a foregone conclusion. The twist to me still sucks, as I've said a lot now while covering the Traitors so far this season. It's just illogical. None of these three are connected to the show. Tony's not getting the special treatment. He's a two-time winner. Who is Boston Rob to always be the person who gets his hand held by producers of these TV shows? But that is what happens here. But the other reason the twist annoyed me is because it's like all three men entering the game. And this could be a controversial take. I don't think it should be. I think it's actually very accurate. If you want to look at reality television over the years, and even these competition shows, the challenge especially, and I think it happens the most during the challenge, women make these shows more entertaining than the men do most of the time. And on the challenge is always Wes and CT and Bananas who get all these credit to be the face of the show. But if women weren't bringing drama on that show, I don't think the challenge makes it to a season 20, let alone a season 40. The women carried that show on their backs where the entertainment portion of the show was concerned. And so far, the only woman from that show we've seen is Trishelle, who did win the Traitors, but it's not like she's like the big woman on the challenge. In fact, most of the time, Trishelle is a very annoying character, if not downright hard to watch. So I just don't like the fact that three men are these big players to enter the game and be given special treatment compared to the rest of the cast. So not only is the twist illogical, but it's also just annoying for that fact as well, because now it's just a male heavy cast. Luckily, Bob the Drag Queen is carrying the show on his back this season with the entertainment. But a lot of the other guys, like Britney Spears' ex, I forget his name because I didn't care about him when they were married. Didn't even know they were ever married. So I certainly don't care about him now. Dylan, he's trying to play the game, but he's not exactly doing himself any favors in the arguments of the roundtable. Before we get to that roundtable, though, we do have to talk about episode 2's roundtable. Bob the Drag Queen throwing Wells' name out there, and he ended up being the person voted out. I didn't hate that from Bob. That's apparently what made him suspicious to Dylan, was him doing that and then not voting for him. I understood why Bob did that, because all this other information was brought up during the roundtable. So I don't think it's that suspicious of Bob the Drag Queen to throw out Wild's name and then vote a different direction, because the vote was also so close. It was literally a tie until the very end. So while Dylan is right about Bob being a traitor, I'm not exactly following his logic of how he came to that conclusion. I think he is actually kind of just either intimidated by Bob's personality, or maybe Bob is just doing a little too much of trying to hold court all the time. The other thing of that first roundtable was Tom versus Chriselle. I thought Chriselle handled herself very well and kind of made Tom look dumb, which is not hard because I think Tom has shown to be dumb, at least by the edit. He is always saying in the first three episodes that he trusts all the people that are actually the traitors. He loves him some Danielle, loves him some Bob. I haven't heard him talk about Carolyn as much, but I do think that Tom is not looking so hot uh, where that is concerned. Danielle versus Robin was the other confrontation at the first roundtable. I thought, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I thought Danielle's idea to try and make it look like another housewife was a traitor because a housewife was killed was kind of a long shot. If any of these dummies watched season 2 of The Traitors last season, because Phaedra was always trying to keep housewives safe because Phaedra was actually good at this game compared to supposed reality competition show legends like Dan. Phaedra knew that to keep people who like her around is going to get her further in the game. So Danielle going after the housewives this way didn't make that much sense to me. And I thought Robin actually handled herself well at the round table. While Robin did have votes against her, she was not the person voted out. So she did something right at the round table. Wells was voted out, like I said. And then at the end of episode 2 is when Boss and Rob joins the Traitors. At least by the edit, their reactions were not happy. Hello, Chucky in the chat, who says that he hates the twist. I agree. It's not hard for me to hate a twist, though, but I do think that this twist is illogical and doesn't help the entertainment quality of the season. Boss and Rob joining the Traitors. It adds a dynamic that maybe is needed, but like I said, I'm going to get to talking about everyone individually here in a bit, but I didn't love their reactions. I didn't love Bob pushing for another housewife. I didn't love Carolyn pushing for Brittany when Danielle is right that that's going to make Danielle look suspicious. Rob was saying in his confessional that he's hoping people listen to him because Bob is trying to hold court, but then they did listen to Bob and vote out another housewife. I'm not seeing the strategy behind this, the logic behind the Traitors' ideas here. I do feel like Bob maybe does have a lot of power with the Traitors, which isn't bad for Bob, but it's kind of bad for Danielle and Carolyn and maybe even Boss and Rob. But especially Danielle here, because let's follow the logic of, or try to follow Danielle's logic as a traitor so far with her ideas. The first kill, she wants to kill off a housewife to make a suspicion look like another housewife did it. And she really hones in on targeting Robin as that traitor. But then Robin is not voted out at the round table, so Robin is still in the game. And then their idea, or at least Bob's idea, and Danielle ends up going with it, is to kill off Ion, who is another housewife. And now, to anyone that can actually think, and apparently in the edit, Wes is one of the only people that could actually think, it's not a housewife. A housewife can't be a traitor at this point. That would just look really dumb on a housewife to do all that. The logic just kind of isn't there. So I think that if anybody is thinking about Danielle other than Jeremy, I guess, it looks suspicious of Danielle, in my opinion. So I didn't love any of this discussion to kill off Aeon. Bob saying he wanted to create chaos. Did it really create that much chaos? Also, early in the game, it's easy to create chaos in this kind of game because nobody knows anything. Nobody knows who they can trust yet. It's very early in the game. So I think this second kill from the Traitors should have been way more strategic than what it ended up being. After that, we have Dylan on to Bob, but he also thinks the traitor could be Robin. Jeremy is on to Danielle. Danielle has been overdoing it. At the breakfast, she's being way too obvious about how Bob can't be a traitor. And the fake crying, I don't think she's that good of an actress to pull it off. Like, I enjoyed in the first episode when she was being upset about the mission and not wanting to talk to anybody, sitting by herself. I thought she did good enough in that. And I feel like a lot of other people fell for that. The breakfast, though, you can't keep overdoing it. You're really not that good of an actress to keep overdoing it. So I can see why Jeremy is suspicious of Danielle. She is overdoing it. Is Bob overdoing it too? I think Bob gets away with it because he is always over the top. He's more consistent and he's known more for that on the outside of the game, where I don't think Danielle is known for that. Like, she was over the top in her confessionals in her Big Brother season. So if anybody's seen that season, maybe they can suspect that. I think Carolyn also gets away with it, like I said yesterday, with her fidgetiness. But Danielle, I understand why she is looking suspicious to people. Tony was the one that ended up looking the most suspicious for the round table. He had a lot of people coming his way. Before that, though, was Dylan calling out Bob the Drag Queen. And he did a really bad job of doing that. He was not prepared to go toe to toe with Bob. And it honestly didn't help that he was throwing Robin in there with it. I get how Faithful play that way, because what else can he do? Faithful have to throw names out there. You're never going to win the game. But to say that, oh, Robin or Bob has to be a traitor, it's going to be 2-on-1 against you in the round table. And I think that definitely hurt him there. And Bob just dragged him. I mean, anytime he tried to go out at Bob is great at arguing. And I, of course, love the misunderstanding or whatever he was calling her. I thought that was misguided. It was misguided. That would be Dylan's drag name. I thought that was a good drag. But Tony ended up being voted out. And I do feel as though Tony was screwed by production. If you're rolling out this red carpet for Boss and Rob, I don't really understand why they didn't do that for Tony, but it is what it is. And I'm not even the biggest Tony stan. Like, was I rooting for Tony on Winners at War? I certainly was not. But I think production really screwed the pooch here. I'm trying to go through production's logic to do this twist, and just none of it makes sense. Why are these three getting treated better or different than anyone else on the cast? I don't think that makes a lick of sense. Tony did kind of do himself in, though. I mean, I'm not saying that Tony didn't screw up his game here. He was being way too in the survivor mentality of, I have to be selfish for myself and I can't be a team player at all, even though I still have to be a faithful. I think Tony fell into that trap of being too selfish all the time. Bob Harper calling him out during the mission in episode 3 didn't help him. Even though he did end up going first in the mission after being called out by Bob Harper, but too many things were adding up against Tony at that point. Boston Rob turning on Tony at the round table because allegedly Tony didn't talk to him after Boston Rob gave him a shield at the end of episode 2. I understand Rob's logic, I guess, but I don't think it did Boston Rob any favors for his standing in the game. If the Survivor players are supposed to be working together and Boston Rob is coming into the game late and he doesn't really have an alliance outside of the Survivor players and Derek and Wes, then I think him turning on Tony was a little too early. And I feel like that was Boston Rob trying to play Survivor rather than trying to play the Traitors. But Tony does fall, and he does call out Boston Rob in his exit, which I think also can hurt Boston Rob going forward. So a misstep there. But yeah, I still think the production choice to do this twist when Tony's in the game was illogical from the very start, and he was a little screwed. And I think production's mentality was Survivor and Big Brother kind of made this show popular because look at Surrey in season one, and then look at last season with Dan and Parv and Sandra. So we need to really bring in Boston Rob because he was really popular 20 fucking years ago. So let's bring in him. But then you have these other Survivor people and other Survivor fans who are like, why are you not treating Tony different? The logic just isn't there. I'm sorry, it's not, and nobody will convince me otherwise. The last thing to talk about before I kind of want to go through some of these people individually and talk about their games real quick. The coffin twist. We saw this similar twist last season where they have to do something in secret. They never seem to somehow get caught when they're all going into a secret room to talk to each other. The edit made it seem like Gabby might have caught Danielle and Carolyn coming out of the secret room. But I feel like we had a similar edit last season and then they ended up not getting caught. It was just kind of used as a cliffhanger. We might as well jump into the people because I really want to talk about Danielle's game. I'm not loving Danielle's game. The overacting, I already talked about it. It is too much. Then she gets the word that Jeremy is throwing out her name. And maybe if Jeremy somehow only threw out her name to Carolyn and Bob, which I doubt, then maybe she can go after Jeremy and kill him off and it's not going to fall back on her. But as someone who is so probably rightfully suspicious that if they kill off Brittany right now, it'll come back on her, I don't see how wanting to put Jeremy's name on the list and possibly kill off him does not fall back on her too. So I think the logic is just missing there. And I also talked about her whole idea to go after a housewife to make it look like a housewife is the traitor. But then the traitors end up killing off a second housewife, kind of ruined her whole strategy in the first place. And she went along with it, even though it was Bob's idea. So I think Danielle is going to burn out at some point. That's at least the edit that she's getting. Somehow, I feel like she thinks she's playing this super strategic game, and because she wants to think so many steps ahead, but she's not. She is somehow playing a great social game, and I don't know if she's intending to do that, but people are trusting her despite her overacting. But strategically, I think she is not doing well. She's playing well socially. Strategically, I'm not seeing it for Danielle so far as a traitor. Bob as a traitor, maybe I'm being biased because he entertains me so much. And even though he's holding court at I want to say tribal council, but out the round table, he is doing a good job of sticking to his guns. I think nobody can out argue him on this cast from what I've seen, at least not right now. Do I think he could burn out too? Of course, because he's trying to be a control freak with the traitors, and that's going to piss off fellow traitors for sure. But Bob is the show right now, whether it's confessionals, whether it's reading people at the round table. He's getting his way with the traitors 2 times in a row. He was the main person that wanted to kill off Ion. He got his way despite Rob disagreeing, despite Carolyn disagreeing. Even Danielle disagreed too. I think what happened with Danielle maybe is that Brittany was getting thrown out and she didn't want Brittany to get murdered. So she had to go along with something, but that was the wrong move for Danielle. But where Bob is concerned, Dylan is his main nemesis right now. And unless Dylan can find a social game, I don't see how Dylan's going to rally the numbers to get Bob out anytime soon. So Bob definitely has his weaknesses with the whole control freak and him always kind of being out there a lot. But that's just his personality too. So I do think he can get away with it, at least for now. But yeah, he does have the potential to burn out too. Carolyn as a traitor, I feel like she's doing the best job of the traitors, but I also kind of feel like that's only because she's not really playing as a traitor so far. Like if I had to choose who's going to win as a traitor, my pick would be Carolyn because she is getting away with her fidgety self and not looking suspicious to others. But Carolyn is being way too passive. I think that is something that was Phaedra's weakness last season. She was letting Dan and then later Parvati burn their own games when Phaedra had an actual better read on the game than them. But she kept letting them kind of not only bring themselves down, but they ended up bringing her down with them. And that's something Carolyn cannot do here. I think she is being way too passive, despite so far most of the time having a better read on the game than at least Danielle. I think Bob is playing a good game for himself, maybe not the traders as a whole. Carolyn saying Brittany should be killed right now, I do think that was bad for Danielle, so I don't know if that was the best read for the traders as a whole. But Carolyn's not sticking to her guns. And yeah, that could get her further in the game. And it's why I think right now, as a trader, she has the best chance of making the end. But if you're too passive and you still get to the end, other people's decisions could bring her down too. Boston Rob as a trader, he's been a trader for about a minute. He's trying to be this team player, and I want to respect it. But it's like there's also 4 traders. That's still a lot of traders. It's not that early to lose a trader. I just didn't agree with him turning on Tony this early. I think it would have been actually better for his game to turn on a trader than to turn on Tony. He's going to need someone besides the traders who are already a hot mess to help him out in this game. And with him coming so late in the game and getting this special treatment and automatically being a trader, if somehow he does win because his hand is held again, like the season of Survivor he won, I'm not going to give him the respect to be the winner. Sorry, not going to do it. Let's talk about a few people that aren't traders, though. Robin, I thought Robin was going to be boring because from the season and a half I've seen of Potomac, Robin is arguably the most boring of the first 2 seasons of Potomac. She's been on a lot more seasons that I haven't seen. But even outside of me, I've seen a lot of people who thought Robin was going to come into this game and be boring. I can admit I was wrong. I like Robin on the cast so far. I like that she doesn't take any shit. She doesn't want to kiss any ass. She saved herself at the first round table, even though she did have some votes against her. Yeah, she was wrong about Tony, but everyone was basically wrong about Tony. I'm not saying Robin's playing this great game by any means, but she's one of the more entertaining people on the show. I don't know if that speaks to the cast that one of the most boring people from a Housewives franchise is actually one of the more entertaining people on this cast. Probably not the best thing for the cast overall. Dylan, he's right about Bob. As I said, he has a good read on Bob at least. How is he going to gain numbers to get Bob out? He's saying at least at the end of episode 3 that he wants to fall back and try and find someone he can trust. That's a good idea. We'll see if that person is someone he can trust. He's really gung-ho about Boston Rob. So if it ends up being Boston Rob, that's going to be a mistake from Dylan. So on one hand, it's good to see Dylan have a good read because, you know, the nepotism of him getting casted is not my favorite thing in the first place. And I'm glad Bob read him for filth because I don't really like him on the cast. But, you know, he has a good read. He has to find a social game, though. You know, he's catching up as a non-reality star or any kind of star. His brother's just a star. Bob Harper and Gabby, the thing I like about them most is that they're probably 2 of the feistiest faithful in the game. We see Bob Harper call out Tony on the mission. He's also been very vocal on other missions as well. Gabby's usually vocal at roundtables, which is good. I'm hoping those 2 work together. You know, Gabby has her little clique with Chriselle and Nikki, which I think could be good if they could get a better read on the game as faithful. But I really do like Gabby and Bob Harper. I knew I would coming in, as I said in my cast assessment. Jeremy, he's on to Danielle. He's trying to play this low key Jeremy game that he usually does. It might be a little too low key because he's in Danielle's aim now. As I said earlier, I think it's a little too early for Danielle to target Jeremy because Jeremy will. I just think that's going to fall back on Danielle, or at least it should. I just don't think Jeremy only told Bob and Carolyn that he's suspicious of Danielle. And if he did, well, then that was dumb if he did that. I also like Jeremy putting out the candle with his fingers. That was a boss firefighter move if I ever did see one. Last people, I'll just talk about Wes and Derek a little bit, I guess. Wes, I always like Wes. I'm a little sick of seeing Wes on TV. He was just on House of Villains literally less than a month ago. It's just a little too much for me, and I'm sick of the challenge in general. Like, we've seen 15 seasons of the challenge over the past less than 5 years because of all the spinoffs. It's too much. Wes wasn't on all those, but yes. Hello, Ray Rush in the comments. What's up? Kaiwan, not talking about soap operas today, but one of these days I will again. But yeah, Wes, I'm interested to see him play as a faithful. I want to see him do some detective work because he is smart. He's the only person shown in the edit really being smart about, well, a housewife can't be a traitor now because 2 housewives being killed doesn't make a whole lot of sense for one of them being a traitor. He's good at getting alliances. It's just that, will he get the right alliances? Will he trust Rob too much? It's possible. Derek, like I'll give Derek, if Derek can have good strategy at this game like he did on Big Brother, I can't talk too much shit about him. I mean, I will say, much like Boston Rob, if Wes or Derek win as a faithful, it's like, oh, good for you, but you were literally safe for 4 eliminations by an overpowered twist. So do I respect it that much? Not really. But if Derek does win, I'm not gonna talk shit about him. Like, he's showing potential here with being suspicious of Boston Rob. Can he make a move against Rob? It remains to be seen. That's most of my notes for the Traitors US season 3. You know, I do enjoy the show overall. Talking about the gameplay is kind of funny because it's not this complicated game like Big Brother and Survivor where you really need to find the right strategies or the right alliances. It's kind of a game of eliminating the right people or figuring out the game as you eliminate the right or wrong people. But as a traitor, I think it's easier to talk about bad gameplay because they do have such an advantage. They all know each other. They get to kill people off. So if a traitor is fucking up, then I can't not sit here and not drag them a little. Ray is excited for Danielle Reyes as a traitor. I mean, I agree. I was excited too. I still am. I don't want to give you any spoilers because it sounds like you're not on episode 2 or 3 yet. But she needs to start making smarter decisions and just tone it down. Bob the Drag Queen, I guess, too, needs to tone it down a little. But I still think he's doing better for his own personal game than Danielle is, for sure. Even though both of them have an excellent social game. Yeah, not usually. Not usually the right day back there. All right, I'm actually leaving too. That was my little rundown of the first 3 episodes. I will be back next Thursday when the episode 4 airs. I think it's just 1 episode, which means I probably won't do a live. I'll probably just record a video. But yeah, that is it for now. I'll see you all next time.